Hey guys, Crystal here from Crystal Design. Today we're learning how to knit a basic beanie. We are needing just one ball of number 6 super bulky weight yarn. I'm using Line Brand's Wool Ease Thick and Quick. For baby 6 to 12 month size, you'll need about 40 yards, toddler 45 yards, child 50 yards, teen small adult 60 yards, and medium large adult 65 yards. And the knitting needles I'm using are US size 13 9mm. I'm using a 16-inch cable. Other things you'll need are scissors, measuring tape, large eye yarn needle, and a stitch marker. So we're going to start by casting on, and we're going to cast on using the long tail, which is a really simple, easy cast on to learn and quick to do. The hardest part of the long tail cast on is calculating the long tail. So at this gauge with this size yarn and needle, for the baby size, you're going to want to cast on a tail of about 46 inches, toddler 51 inches, child 56, teen small adult 61, and medium large adult 66-inch tail. Now that will give you enough for each of the stitches we're going to cast on, plus a tail. Then we'll do a slip knot and slide that on our knitting needle. So when we get set up here, the yarn back here is my working yarn. It's attached to my yarn ball, and the yarn coming towards me is my very long tail. So I have the slip knot here. I'm going to put my first and thumb through this little triangle here and grab both ends of the yarn. And I have a long tail cast on video tutorial for you separately if you need a little bit more on that. And then I'm going to pick up the yarn with my knitting needle that's coming around my thumb here. I'm going to go over to the yarn that's coming from my first finger, also scoop that and pull it through the yarn from my thumb. Slide my thumb out and pull that to gently secure it, not too tight. We'll do that again. We're still set up here. Bring the needle down below the thumb, scoop the thumb yarn, scoop the finger yarn, pull it through, slide that off. Okay, for baby size 6 to 12 months or 14 to 15-inch head circumference, you're going to cast on 30 stitches. Toddler 1 to 3 years, 15 inches to 17-inch head circumference, cast on 34. Child 4+ years, 17 to 19-inch head circumference, cast on 38. Teen small adult, 19-inch to 21-inch head circumference, cast on 42. And for medium or large adult, 20 to 22-inch head circumference, cast on 46 stitches. Okay, once you have cast on all of your stitches, we're going to join to work in the round. And to do that, we're simply going to knit. The stitch here on my left needle and the stitch on my right will be joined by the working yarn that we knit. Spread your stitches out around your needles, and for the baby younger sizes, you'll really have to spread them out. It'll be a tight fit. Going to reinsert my right needle into the first stitch on my left needle in this leg here. This is going in knitwise. Then I'm going to wrap that working yarn around counterclockwise and holding it with my first finger, using that and the needle to scoop that yarn loop through. Notice how it added another loop on this needle. Then I'm going to slide the first one I was working on off. And so if you look down here, we have joined the last stitch to the first stitch, and we have knit the first stitch of the round. My yarn tail here is going to help me see where I start and finish. It's right behind my last stitch right now. So I've knit one. Now I'm going to make ribbing because it's stretchy for a hat. So now I'm going to purl one. So I bring the yarn in the front and I'm going to insert my needle into that leg, but this time I'm going to go in purlwise from right to left in the front on that leg. Then I'm going to wrap the yarn around and scoop it through, sliding that stitch onto this needle and the one we just knit into off. Now if you look, you can see this horizontal bar across the front. That's your purl stitch. If we pull like this, you can see the V of our knit, our first one. Now we go back to knitting. Yarn is already in the back. Insert my right needle tip into the first stitch knitwise. Wrap the yarn, scoop it through, slide the stitch off. Go to purl, bring it to the front. Insert the right needle purlwise through the front leg of the next stitch. Wrap the yarn, scoop it through, slide the stitch off. We'll keep repeating that all the way around. I'm going to go a little bit faster here now, but you can slow it down and rewind those first few knits and purls. If you started with a knit, you're going to end with a purl. Every so often you can move your stitches around. You can see how long our join here is getting pulled right now. That's just because it's on the cable and that first stitch is getting pulled small. That was a purl, so I'm on a knit. So you want to make your stitches here on this part of your needle, not the narrowed part. That's for sliding them off. And that's also where you chance slipping a stitch off that you either didn't knit or knit and then lost, dropping a stitch. I'm going to finish knitting my round off camera. I'll come back when we get right to the last few stitches so you can see there. Okay, here we are at our last couple of stitches. We're going to knit this one and then our last stitch, which has our tail on it there, it's a little loose, is a purl. Just going to pull that tail through and now that's secure and not in our way anymore. Now we're back to the beginning of our round. You can see our join there. Our first stitch was a knit that we did. Now we're going to knit into the knits and purl into the purls because we're doing ribbing. So we'll knit one, purl one all the way around. So I'm looking at a knit, going to knit, looking at a purl, going to purl, and keep knitting and purling around. You can see those knits start to stack up and the purls kind of go to the back here. You can see the horizontal bars of them. Here's our cast on row. Okay, there's my tail, so I know I'm coming up to the end or beginning of my round. There's my slip knot here. So I have my knit. My last one is a purl there with my tail. See how we're joined? Each round is joined just like it is in between the other stitches. As you go and you're further away from the tail or the slip knot, you may not be able to see. They make stitch markers for that. So you can use a stitch marker to mark the beginning of your round. Just slide it on your needle, and then every time you come to it, you slide it over, and you know when you get to the end of the section where to stop, because eventually we'll stop doing ribbing and we'll switch on to our stockinette stitch. Keep repeating this one round of ribbing until you have 6 rounds total, or your band is about 2 inches tall. So I'm going to go ahead and finish my ribbing off camera. You'll work up yours, and then we'll come back together and do the next step on our hat. Okay, so once I have 6 rounds of ribbing, my ribbing is a little over 2 inches, so you could continue that for another inch if you prefer. I'm going to go ahead and start on the body of the hat. So we're going to switch over to just working stockinette. And in the very first stitch here, I'm just going to knit like I have been. The next stitch is a purl, but now I'm just going to knit. And now I am knitting in every stitch around. Okay, here we are. You can see the stitch marker where my first stitch is. Last stitch was a purl from the last round, knitting there. So now I'm just going to keep repeating this one round all the way around, knitting in each stitch. And you'll see after a little bit that the stockinette stitch works up that fabric you're used to seeing. So just keep knitting each round, slipping that stitch marker and continuing to knit all the way around each stitch for every round until your hat reaches the height you need. If you're making the baby size hat, you want to go to at least 6 inches tall, toddler size 7 inches, child size 7.5 inches, teen or small adult size 8.5 inches, medium and large adult 9.5 inches tall. And then we'll come back together and we'll cinch in the top of our hat. So we do lose a little bit of height with the cinching method without using decreases there, so that's why our hat heights might sound a little bit tall. Okay, so just keep knitting until you reach the height you need for your hat, and then we will finish off our hats. Then it's time to close up the top. And we are just going to do this the very simple way without any decreased stitches. If you already know how to knit two together, you could do some decreases around to have fewer stitches. But we are going for total beginner here, so we're just going to pull a length of yarn from our working yarn, enough to go all the way around and pick up all of those stitches. So we'll cut our yarn, and then we'll take our large eye yarn needle and thread it. So to get it off our needles, we are going to slide our needle into the first stitch on the knitting needle. We're going to slide the yarn needle into the stitch on the knitting needle, and this has our tail that we did, and you just slide it off. And then we're going to pull the tail through. So now that stitch is on our tail. Now we're going to do that for all of the stitches, so you can just slide them and once you have a needle full, you can pull it through. And keep going around. Okay, that was our last one. So now we're pulling through all of them. Once they're all on, you can take those needles off. And now you're just going to slide it closed. Pull it tight. Now we'll have to weave in our end here. If you would like to add a pom to the top of your hat, this is where you could do that by sewing it on, or some of them come with snaps for you to sew the snap on and the other end to the pom-pom. So let's see. Just going through the stitches there with my tail. Go around a little bit, and then I'll start going back and forth. So here I am going to go across this circle, my hole here. And back this way.
Now I'm going to go across the other way. And you can keep doing this for as long as you like. You just want to make sure that hole stays closed. So when I tug on it, it's not coming open or anything. And then I will feed it down into the center of the tail there. You can flip that. And you can keep weaving it away in here some more. And then you can cut it and even leave a little bit there. The other thing you'll need to do is weave in the ends that you started with on your yarn if you had to join yarn anywhere. So you can just follow up the line of stitches here. Get that away from the joining point. And I'll go across here to my purl line. Okay, so after you have weaved in all the ends, then you just trim your yarn.